What could cause a family of 3 to suddenly disappear? Could they have run away with the intention of never being found? Perhaps they were murdered. Maybe they're just being held hostage. Or maybe they're just simply lost. Our case today dives into the disappearance of the Jamison family in rural Oklahoma in the late 2000s. This case is one of the most enigmatic and puzzling cases in American history, mostly due to the fact that there are so many theories that surround it, all of which are seen by most as completely plausible. As the local sheriff of the area in which the Jamisons disappeared said, and I'm paraphrasing, "This case is the only one I've worked on where we haven't been able to eliminate any one theory as to why the Jamisons just suddenly vanished." So who were the Jamisons? Bobby, Sherilynn, and their young daughter Madyson were a simple family living in Eufaula, Oklahoma. To all who knew them, they seemed like a fairly normal set of people who liked the isolation of rural living. Allegedly, Bobby and Sherilynn had a somewhat tumultuous relationship, but nothing extreme in the way of anything like domestic violence. They also were very loving towards their daughter and seemed more or less stable on the surface. What we know about them close to the day that they vanished was that they were looking to purchase a large plot of land in the Oklahoma wilderness. On October 8th, 2009, the Jamisons loaded their pickup truck, headed into the mountains, and were never seen alive again. When the Jamisons weren't heard from for several days, a search for the family began in earnest. After 8 days of hunting their whereabouts, the police located the family's truck, and that is when things started to get weird. The Jamisons' pickup truck was discovered within a few days, abandoned in Latimer County, Oklahoma, a short distance south of the town of Kinta. The Jamisons' bodies were not found. Well, one Jamison did survive the ordeal. Miraculously, their malnourished dog Maisie was still in the truck and alive. And don't worry, she was adopted by family members after and taken care of. Also discovered were the Jamisons' IDs, wallets, mobile phones, a GPS system, and about $32,000 in cash. According to shocked family members, the Jamisons were not known for carrying large amounts of cash with them, as they both lived on disability and were virtually broke. The police also stated that the fact that they left their dog in the car, as well as the items that they found, indicates that when the Jamisons got out of their car, they weren't planning on going anywhere for a long time. Their truck showed no signs of forced entry or anything suspicious, and it was clear that they did at least get out of the truck themselves. Search parties continued to search for the Jamisons, alive or dead, and fanned out into the woods, but the terrain of the forest made the search difficult. The topography of the area was very steep and hilly. The search came up empty and everything went cold until 2013, when 2 hunters found the skeletal remains of 3 human beings in the woods. Investigators soon confirmed that the remains belonged to all 3 members of the Jamison family, confirming their deaths. According to authorities, after analyzing the remains, the 3 family members were lying on their stomachs on a relatively steep incline, and that Bobby had a bullet wound in his skull. What's more is that the remains were found only a mile away from where police had found the truck 4 years prior. How did the search party miss them? Perhaps the bodies were moved, or perhaps animals carried what was left of them to that spot. Regardless, no answers emerged as to what had happened to the Jamisons, and the case continued to be shrouded in mystery. What happened to them? Well, let's dive into some of the many theories revolving around this case. And trust me, these theories go from strange to batshit crazy. Many speculate that the Jamisons were either dealing drugs or under the influence of drugs, and their disappearance was related to a drug deal gone wrong. This relates to the inexplicable large amounts of cash that the Jamisons had on them when they had disappeared. Meth usage was rampant in this part of Oklahoma, so some think that Bobby and Sherilynn were possibly users, and this would also explain another aspect of the case. Police found that the Jamisons had a security camera that actually showed them the day they disappeared. The footage is odd, to say the least, and shows the Jamisons packing up their truck in an almost trance-like state. They go back and forth, loading up their car one item at a time and saying nothing to each other. There are even points where they stop walking altogether and just stand still and seemingly just stare off into space. Many say this is clearly due to drug usage and that they were high that day, thus explaining their general erratic behavior. Perhaps even under the influence of drugs, they both became paranoid out of the blue and took their daughter and dashed into the woods. But back to the drug deal point, authorities found that the Jamisons had no connections with any local drug dealers and also found no traces of illegal drugs in either their car or their truck. Family members also insisted that they were not users of any illegal drugs. Also, some have made a good point in saying that why would they take their daughter with them on a drug deal, and their dog too for that matter. Another sub-theory within this theory is that perhaps the Jamisons saw illegal activity in a meth-ridden area they were traversing, and members of an Oklahoma drug trade followed them, forced them to get out of their car, and then killed them. But once more, no evidence has come to light that this was the case. Some say that what happened to the Jamisons could be attributed to a familial dysfunction and discord at home. The Jamisons did have their issues and argued with each other quite a bit. Bobby took pain pills, quite a bit as well, to deal with back pain from a car accident, and Sherilynn allegedly was bipolar. Even her mother once told a story about how Sherilynn begged her to accompany her in a car, only to suddenly stop the car halfway to their destination and demand that her mother get out. Both also suffered quite frequently from depression, and officers found an aggressive 11-page hate letter from Sherilynn written for Bobby. Finally, authorities noted that Sherilynn owned a gun and that this gun was missing from the truck. Remember, Bobby's remains showed he had a bullet wound in his head. Perhaps Sherilynn killed Bobby, Madyson, and then killed herself. But many have brushed off this theory, as the Jamisons were reportedly never physically violent with each other. Also, this theory just doesn't add up, and really has no evidence to hold water other than relationship disputes, which, let's be honest, is quite common in marriages. This theory relates somewhat to the drug deal gone bad theory. It's the assumption that the Jamisons were in a witness protection program and that they could have been informants for a government case against local meth dealers. Reportedly, Bobby and Sherilynn removed Madyson from school shortly before their disappearance. Bobby also maintained in a formal petition against his father that he and his family were severely scared for their lives at all times. Authorities found no signs of a struggle at the recovered Jamison truck, further propelling theorists to claim that the Jamisons willingly went with an unknown party, i.e. maybe federal marshals. But once more, this theory has no real evidence, as all authorities have stated that the Jamisons were in no such program. Bobby had a rocky relationship with his father, Bob Sr., and the two were constantly at odds, so much so that Bobby legitimately thought that his father at one point would end up killing him. Apparently, 6 months before the Jamisons disappeared, Bobby had filed a petition against Bob Sr. when he claimed Bob was threatening to kill him constantly. Bob Sr. was also a very dangerous man and associated with many less than reputable characters, such as the Mexican Mafia, and was involved with other gangs, meth, and prostitutes. Remember the pain pills that Bobby took for his back? The accident, in fact, that caused this injury was one where Bob Sr. deliberately hit him with a truck. Still, it doesn't explain why Bob Sr. would also kill his daughter-in-law and granddaughter. And furthermore, Bob Sr. was cleared by the authorities with an alibi he produced that checked out. So once more, another dead end and unlikely theory. Like I said, these theories get wilder and wilder. Sherilynn's mother claimed that the Jamisons were on a hit list from a local cult in the Eufaula area. For what reasons, it's unknown. This theory doesn't have much more information, but some claim that during the security footage, the reason for their strange behavior was because a member of said cult was acting as a sort of overseer as they packed, and then went with them wherever they were going, eventually killing them. And here we go. Of course, at some point, we'd have to get here. The supernatural is always a ready theory that people are ready to pull the trigger on. But a lot of disappearance cases that incur the suspicion of supernatural involvement have no grounds at all and are just thrown out there for fun. But this case actually has some things that prove that leading up to their disappearance, the Jamisons were allegedly, at the minimum, speaking about supernatural things in their lives. For example, Bobby went to a local preacher and told him that he believed that the family was under attack by ghosts, and those ghosts in question were living on top of their roof. And he asked said pastor for holy bullets to help with an exorcism at one point too. Also, Bobby claimed to have been in the possession of a witch Bible or satanic Bible, but relatives later said after they vanished that he received this book as a prank gift. Well, I don't know about you, but that's a bit of a strange prank gift to me. To give someone such a specific and strange item doesn't really connotate a joke of any kind. Finally, Sherilynn told a lot of people in the town that she was in fact a witch. The family owned a lot of storage units. On one such unit, Sherilynn graffitied the words, "3 cats killed to date by people in this area. Witches don't like their black cat killed." Despite this, none of these allegations really lead towards them disappearing, even if all these stories were true. Some speculate that the trance they were in during the security footage indicates they were possessed or under the influence of a supernatural force. But at the end of the day, this theory doesn't connect to anything related to their disappearance or murder. It's just speculation. The final theory I want to bring is that perhaps the Jamisons were victim to a kidnapper who might have been threatening the family beforehand. They got scared and quickly fled their house one day, perhaps with the aim to get away from this stalker, but then got followed on the day they disappeared. The only clue that nods to this theory is the last image ever taken of Madyson. Police found a picture on Bobby's phone of Madyson, which was taken on the day they disappeared. In fact, taken only a small while before they disappeared. It shows Madyson on a rock in the woods, sitting with her arms folded and guarded. Many people initially said that it was probably Bobby himself who took the photo and that she was in fact laughing in it. But some began to take a closer look at her expression and body language and realized she actually looked scared and uncomfortable. Many then started to believe that their captor was the one who took this photo, for what reason is unknown, but then forced them to go to an isolated area, commanded that they exit the car, having them march through the woods only to kill them and leave their bodies. Theories abound and none definitive. What do I think happened? Well, I lean towards the final theory, that someone unknown to any of us but the Jamisons themselves, or perhaps even a random stranger, followed the family out to the woods, cornered them, took those pictures, forced them to stop driving, come out of their car, and to begin tracking into the woods, then murdering them. The mother and daughter by unknown means, and the father by gunshot. But just like every theory in this case, there's no hard evidence for this. The Jamison disappearance is by far one of the most baffling missing person cases in American history. Never have I stumbled upon something so lacking of evidence and so many theories being plausible. For all we know, maybe they just upped and decided to walk into the woods only to get lost and died from exposure. Maybe they were kidnapped, transported elsewhere, killed, and then dumped back into the same woods. This case, I think, is one that actually might stay unsolved. There have been no suspects since Bobby's father, and no arrests or new evidence has come out since 2013. This case is completely and utterly cold, and more than likely it will remain that way forever. This has been the Night Lounge, signing off. Be careful out there.